All right, guys, I'm here with Ryan Benoit. He's getting ready to go and teaches Muay Thai class here at Octagon. But in the meantime, we got this fucking podcast. He agreed to come on. You know, he's MMA fighter. Now he's coaching. Are you still fighting?
I don't know, man. I'm kind of like, I keep getting asked that question quite a bit, but I'm kind of in the phase of like enjoying where I'm at in life, where I'm at coaching, where I'm at and everything. And right now I'm just cruising. I'm not saying that I'm done fighting, but I'm not saying I'm continuing fighting. I'm just kind of like, maybe if the right opportunity comes up, I'll say yes and kind of continue on. But for now, I'm just kind of like settled in.
So when was the last fight you had?
So my last fight with the UFC was an MMA fight. Man, I don't even remember the dates. I think it was.
Do you remember the year?
Yeah, it was 2021. It was like the summer of 2021.
Okay.
And then I fought John Dodson in August for bare knuckle, and I fought John Dodson was my last fight. For
okay.
Bare knuckle.
So that was a bare knuckle fight. How did that go?
It didn't go good, man.
No?
Dodson fucking blasted me in the first round, and it was the first time I'd ever been dropped, first time I'd ever been knocked down, first time I'd ever any sort of like rock or anything. It all happened right there, and it like a lot happened in my life after like the UFC, and it's probably more of a big shame on me for not treating the fight and the what was going on and everything and who my opponent was, and I wasn't doing like everything that I should have been doing to get ready for the fight, and I fucking learned the hard way.
Damn. And bare knuckle, that's a different type of sport. I mean, there's no takedowns, there's no elbows, there's no kicks.
No, they allow a little bit of dirty boxing. That's kind of like the only like MMA. That's where I guess MMA guys are starting to do well, because they allow you can
hold and hit.
You can hold and hit. In regular boxing, you can't do that. You're not supposed to pull the neck down. They have all these rules, and they break up a lot when you pummel inside. And in bare knuckle, it's kind of like gas pedal. You know what I mean? It's kind of like there's not really like a lot of defense. There's not like a lot of 1-2 slip. There's not like a lot of right hand rolls, and there's no like shoulder roll. It's fucking you're
just swinging.
You're going.
Just going.
And whoever is slower to step on the gas pedal is gonna fall behind. And that's and like I didn't watch a whole. Let me go inside real quick because he's gonna think that I'm out here.
Okay. All right, so we're back. So we're talking about bare knuckle, your last fight, and you're talking about the differences in the fight, and compared to MMA.
Yeah. So bare knuckle doesn't. It's not like defense. That's what I think I was at. I was like, there's no like, there's like when you can't practice like traditional boxing for it in a sense. You know what I mean? It's kind of like keep your guard high and learn to step on the gas pedal and try to hit clean and try to hit quick. Don't try to hit them as hard as you can, but it's a lot more offense. It's kind of like you got to get really used to like kind of throwing your head off the center line, and it looks really ugly sometimes, like as far as like the cleanness of like what sharp boxing looks like. But there's a lot of guys having a lot of success, and it's kind of like whoever lands first sometimes, because they get cut open, they get busted open, and it just feels like rocks hitting you in the face. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, because like when you get hit cleanly, sometimes you can't really feel it. You just kind of feel like what happened. You can't really feel like pain. You don't. It's not like you got hit and you were like, oh fuck. It's kind of like you got hit and you're like, oh shit, I just got hit. But it's not like you feel the cut. It's not like you feel yourself like lumping up. That's just, that kind of comes like later in the night when stuff like that happens. But like in bare knuckle, it was like ding 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 ding, and I was like, oh fuck. And as soon as like the first time I got knocked down, I was like, oh fuck, and I got up. And then I was like, all right, we're good. And then like a second time I got knocked down, I was like, God damn it. And I knew, like I could feel it in my head that the fight was going to end, but I was like dazed enough to where I was just like, huh? And I got on my feet and I was like, oh shit. And then like I knew he was coming, and then I went down again and the ref stopped the fight. Right?
Oh, fuck.
And like as soon as I went down, I was like, fuck. Because like I'd never been finished like that. You know what I mean? Like I'd never been blasted like that before. And it like, I was just like, what the fuck? Like, I almost was just like laughing about it. I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, how did that just happen? I didn't get anything off. I felt like I got nothing off. And like, I went back and I got a couple of good sticks in, but like, man.
How fast was the fight? Do you remember?
It was like a minute and a half into the first round, right?
Damn.
Yeah, Dodson is a fucking tank, man. And like, I felt like why he, like afterwards, and like I was thinking about like his approach and stuff, and I was like, I could tell why he did so good, because I used to do that to people when I was first coming in, right? And it's kind of like the Mike Tyson effect of like, Tyson was really good at getting underneath people, right? And it was almost his advantage sometimes that he was shorter, because he could load up a lot more, and he was coming at like a different angle than what people were used to. Because we're used to seeing punches and strikes coming either straight down the middle, but it's hard to time them coming up at you, and especially when you're used to being the shorter guy, like, and I'm used to kind of rising into people, because I've been hit by people before that were shorter than me, and I was like, oh motherfuck, he just rose up underneath me a little bit, he got up under my chin, right? Because you're kind of naturally underneath there, so when you start throwing your punches, they start coming better like that. And I felt Dotson rise up, because like as I went back, I was like, damn, I saw him step off to my right and kind of like come low, because I saw him like lower than my eyes were like expecting to, because I was kind of expecting him here, but he was kind of low. And then when he came in, I was like, oh shit, he got me. And I felt him like connect. And man, he's a good guy though. Like he is who he is for a reason. And like I knew he was going to be a tough fight, and I think I was talking about this before, that like I didn't train the way that I should have trained. I didn't prepare the way I should have prepared. I didn't put enough time into what I was doing, into like my craft, for who the opponent was, for what the sport was, for what was going on. Like I saw my first bare knuckle fights that night of the fights, right? I ordered the fights on my phone and I was watching them, because I was like, God damn, when I was watching some of the girls were fighting.
So you weren't even really training for this shit, bro. What the fuck?
I was dumbass, right? And I was excited about the whole thing. I was like, man, because I felt good about like, you know, I'm still in the mix. Like I fought Brandon Moreno, you know, and I lost a split decision. It was a good fight with Brandon Moreno. I fought Tim Elliott, who fought for the title. You know, I fought Sergio Pettis, who is the champion in Bellator. You know, I fought like some of the upper names of my weight class in my division, you know, and it felt good that I was like, damn, I'm still in there. I'm still, you know, I got John Dotson, you know, and I was like, I felt like I was comfortable enough training, and I was doing enough to like win the fight, right? And I just felt like, not like I was like for sure I was gonna win. I was like, oh, that was good, you know, that was good training, you know, and like kind of finding excuses for like, was I getting good training or not? And then be like, yeah, it was. We did this and we did this, instead of really being like, holy fuck, like when you get good training, you're not thinking about if you got good training. You're fucking, your body and your mind is so fucked. The last thing you're thinking about was like, was that good or not? That's not even something that your body reacts to.
You're ready for the fight. You're excited for the fight because you trained so fucking hard for the fight.
And if you ever get to a point to where you're questioning, was that enough? It 100% was not even close to enough. You know?
That's so true.
When you're kind of coming up with excuses to like, that was good because we did this many rounds. It's like, bro, you were counting. You should have been doing enough rounds. You don't even know how many. You should, like, your coach should be like, that was 6 rounds. That's enough. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, that was 6 already? You shouldn't even fucking know, you know, because training was that good. But if you're not doing that and you're kind of like, you know, I did, you know, 30 minutes of jump rope. I shuttle blocks for 15 minutes. You know, that was good. You know, I felt good. Maybe I'm just a veteran at this shit. I feel, you know, man. And like afterwards, I was like, dude, shame on me. Like, I deserved all that. I deserved to get knocked around.
So was it a knockout cold or was it a TKO stoppage?
It was a TKO stoppage. The referee stopped. I just kept getting up. Like he hit me. He kind of wobbled me. He got my legs a little sticky, and then I got up, and same thing. I just kept getting up and kept getting up, and I think the ref was like, Jesus Christ, that's enough.
Damn.
And he stopped the fight. And lesson learned to me, man. I'd never been knocked down in a fight. I've been rocked before, but like I'd never been finished like that. Like I'd been submitted before. I'd never been knocked out in a fight ever. And in the UFC and the MMA, like I'd never been knocked down, never knocked out, nothing. I've been buzzed before, you know. I had a doctor tell me, like, when I had my eye exam, he was like, fuck, I could see a concussion based off of like your eye exam because you have too much. You have like a disconnect between like where nerve is supposed to be. It's like you got whiplash, and it's like a whiplash effect that we see like in car accidents and stuff. So I was like, I remember running into a punch and seeing like spots and shit, and then like kind of being like, holy fuck, like I couldn't really hear anything, and I remember just like seeing spots and seeing like black and white. And then when I sat down in our corner, I had Gary Tonin and I had Saxon, who was like hammered drunk. And Gary was like one of his first experiences cornering, and it was in the UFC. And Gary's an animal. And like I looked up both at him, and I think they were both like worried about me. And it was like 20 seconds went by, and I said, guys, give me something. And I swear to God, they both started talking and telling me instructions. I was like, just look, and then the get out, corner's out. And I was like, fuck. And I got right back in, and like I squared up with the guy, and boom, he took me down. And I was like, fuck. And I remember like, all right, I came to, I got my legs inside, off balance. I did my whole fucking get up to the way that we had drilled to get up. I was doing my thing. I got back up. Here we go. Boom. He shot in for, and he got super deep the second time.
Who was that?
This was against, this was in South Korea.
Okay.
I fought Alatang Alatang Wei Li. And, no, not Wei Li. I forgot. That's the other girl. Alatang, I can't remember his last name.
We'll look it up. We'll put it in the podcast.
Okay.
I'll put it in the description.
And he got in super deep on my legs, man. And then, dude, he just kind of, every time I kind of squared up, it was like I forgot we were doing an MMA fight for that when the round started, you know? And like he kind of he got in deep.
And so, did you train for that one at all? Or?
Oh, yeah. This was like in I think this is like right before COVID. This is like 2019.
And so that was a UFC event.
Yeah, this was UFC in South Korea. And I fought at 135 too. This was my first time fighting in the UFC at 135. And it was quite an experience, man. And by the end of the round, I started stuffing all the takedowns, and I woke up, and like I kind of like started to steal the round at the end because I knew I had round one because I'd heard him. I knew round two was close because he buzzed me right at the bell, like right when I was doing all right in the round, and then I threw a jab and I landed it, and I threw another one and I think I kind of like missed it, and then when I threw one more, I ran into a right hand. I remember it like spun my head because I was like, fuck, right when I came back, and I knew the time was like close too, and I backed up and I moved around and I backed up and I was like kind of just, and I remember the bell rang and I was like, whoa, and like it was one of the first times I was like telling myself like, damn, I almost got finished right there, and like I had that conversation. I was like walking back to my corner with myself. I was like, oh shit, that one almost finished me, and then it was kind of like. And then I was like, wait a second, they're supposed to be telling me something. I went back out, and then I fucking got taken down. And so it was.
How'd you do in that fight?
It was a close fight. I outstruck him. I thought I had won the fight. So I think he was from China, but his camp was from South Korea. And I fought in South Korea. So that was kind of my only like way of justifying it to myself that like I should have won the fight. Like I felt like maybe if this was in my hometown, I probably would have won too.
It was a judge's decision, their home turf.
Yeah, and that so sucks. When it's that close, I can't cry about it. That's kind of my rule to myself is like, if it's a split decision and he wins the fight, you can't cry about that.
It's up to the judges at that point.
You shouldn't have let it get that far. He shouldn't have gone 3 rounds with you anyways. And like, even when I tell my guys that like, that train with me, when they win fights or when they win by knockout or when they win whatever, like, I had a guy that fought when we met.
Yeah, XKO,
Yeah, and that's like my conversation. I'm like, we're supposed to finish guys like that, you know. Like, don't get too happy with this whole thing. That was a great fight. You did good. Be proud of yourself. But like, we're supposed to do that. This isn't something this is what we trained for, and this is what we expected. So I'm not like surprised that we did this to him. You know, this is how it's supposed to go. And so don't get too like, don't get too high up on your horse because like that's what you're supposed to do. And Saxon used to tell me stuff like that all the time. He's like, if I went to a decision with somebody, he's like, that guy fucking sucked. You know what I mean? And he would just degrade me. And he's like, you should have knocked him out. And I'm like, God damn it. You know? Fuck, man. Just give me some fucking props, you know, for winning the fight. But it was a good like mentality because he's like, you know, don't gloat too much about this. This is what you're supposed to do and this is what you trained for. And if you're like surprised in this, then like what's going on? Because you're supposed to have like all that confidence, you know?
That's dope, man. That's a good mentality to put on it, to a good way. Think about it, man. You're just dropping some gems too, and that for people watching this, you know, as far as the mindset of training, like if you, like you said, if you're having to have that conversation with yourself, did I train enough? The answer is probably no. Right. What do you think about overtraining? There's a lot of guys that overtrain, man, and I've did that once, and I was really sick, man. Yeah,
you know, there's I had this coach named Jamie Crowder. I want to make sure that I didn't confuse him, but I think it was Jamie Crowder. He's a coach at Hensel Gracie Academy in New York City, and he used to tell me there's certain guys that you got to push to get into the gym. You see the potential, and you got to kind of push them into the gym, and then there's some guys that have the potential, and you got to pull them out of the gym. You got to tell them, calm the fuck down, chill out, right? And he would tell me, you know, you're on the edge of like, you know, I have to pull you back sometimes. You don't need to go for a run today. You don't need to go lift weights. You're doing too much. You don't need to waste time doing this. Let's just worry about this, you know? And some guys, you got to really pull them back. Some guys really think overtraining is not possible. I will say that like when I train my ass off if I train super hard Monday and Tuesday, I think a lot has to do with age too, because like as I've gotten older, like I have to start taking breaks. I have to start taking, you know, I got to start recovering a little bit. I got to start stretching a lot more because by Wednesday, I'm fucking dying now, you know? Yeah. And so like, but there's other people that you got to get through that dying phase. That's where you kind of like learn. That's where you get better is when you go to the gym, you don't want to train and you don't want to learn, and you're kind of forced. It's almost like you're training when you're sick. You're forced to like be in this uncomfortable position and train and perform and do well, and it builds a lot, you know, and it creates a lot of like good habits, because like that's when the training really begins. It's like, because like I'll tell guys like in round like 3 or 4 when they're like dead ass tired, I'm like, boom, this is round 1. Right, this is round 1. This is what the fight really feels like, because you're never gonna go into a fight feeling fucking great, right? Everybody has this idea of like, you know, you're gonna feel good each round. No, you're not. You're gonna feel like shit 2 minutes in. If it's a 5-minute round, you're gonna feel like shit 2.5 minutes in. This is gonna feel like the longest run of your fucking life. You know what I mean? This is gonna feel terrible, and then you're gonna have to go back into your corner, calm the fuck down, take a couple of deep breaths, and now let's get into this tunnel vision. Let's get into autopilot. And we're used to autopilot because we're used to doing that because we've overtrained our asses off. You know what I mean? We're used to feeling like shit and being uncomfortable and still having to do certain stuff, you know? But like, some people don't believe in that. I'm the kind that probably overtrained a lot more than I needed to, you know? And like I was looking at my whole routine of like the Renzo Gracie Academy, and it was like run it at before, because I'd run before going to train at Saxon's, and my kicks would just feel fucking phenomenal. So I was like, I'm always gonna run before I go train now. So I would go run before I would get on the train, and I would go to the city, and then I would get to the city, and I would train with the morning class, and then I would train jiu-jitsu with Gary Tona, and then I would go spar with Gary, and then I would go home and I would rest, and then I would go do light drills with Gary at 8:30, and I did that shit for fucking months, bro. And it was like so much overtraining. And I think that maybe that's why Jamie was like, there's certain people you got to push in the gym, and you're not one of them. Sometimes I got to tell you to fucking chill out and pull it back a little bit, you know? So like, I guess it just really depends on the person and the athlete. Like, everybody's different, you know? Everybody's age is different too. The older you get, you definitely got to start toning it down.
So right now in your career, you're kind of deciding, do you want to keep coaching? Do you want to maybe open a gym? Do you want to start another business? Do you want to get back into fighting? I mean, what is that kind of like all up in the air right now? Like,
yeah, I mean, I'll say this, right? So when this will kind of explain what happened with the Dotson training and with that fight and all that stuff, right? Right after I got released from the UFC, right? I got suspended from the UFC for taking a sleep apnea medicine, right? And it tested positive on my fight night drug test. And so I knew I was released already. I knew I was going to be suspended. And so in my mind, I was like, I gotta get like a regular job now. And like, I kind of was like angry at fighting. I was angry at the USADA drug testing and how that whole system worked. And I was angry at like the circumstances that it was under, and that I was just angry at fighting. I was angry at the sport, and it would be because I'd become like dependent on it. You know, it'd become like, if I didn't get good training today, I'm not going to fight good, and I'm not going to make that money, and then my family's not going to eat, right? And when I first got into the sport, it's not how it was. Like when I first got into it, I was doing it just because I just wanted to be somebody that fought on fucking TV. I would watch highlight reel after highlight reel on Versus all the time because the WEC was the shit. And I lived in California, and some of the guys that I wrestled with in California were in kind of a similar circle of fighting. So it was like, oh man, we had like 6 or 7 guys. Maybe it was like 5.
So was that your background wrestling?
Was it wrestling?
You came through wrestling, but you're a fucking phenomenal striker,
right?
Man.
Yeah, that's my thing though. Now you know it's kind of funny how that worked out. But I got into the sport through wrestling, and then I started doing kickboxing and Muay Thai, and it started going on and on, so on and so forth. I did boxing for a little while, and so anyways, I've been doing this for a long time, and when I got released, I kind of felt like a chapter ended in my life, and I was like, I need to get a real job. I need to get a regular job. So I got a real job and a regular job, and I kind of stopped training, and I stepped away from it for a while. And then the Dodson fight popped up, and my manager's like, you know, you want to take the Dodson fight? Whatever, we can figure it out. So we figured it out, and I was like, I'm going to keep my job, and I'm going to do the Dodson fight. And like, I had just fucking hated the job by this point. And like, once I lost the Dodson fight, and then I realized, like,
what were you doing? Can I ask what you were doing?
Yeah, so I worked for this company called Ritex. It was a concrete additives company, and there's a whole other chapter that we'll
get into another podcast.
We'll get to it in another time. Yeah, right. And so anyway, I worked there for like a year, and I worked there while I was doing the fight, and like the backlash that I had gotten in that place, like by the end of it, I was like, they forgot who the fuck I am in a sense, right? And I don't need to be here. I don't need to be doing this. I don't need any of this. And I was like, and like I had felt like, just like I had felt in the Dodson fight, I was disrespecting the sport, and I was disrespecting, and I deserved that type of outcome because of what I had done. I started to have this like epiphany of like, the same thing is happening to you, and think about your coaches, and think about who you've trained with and who you've been with and who believed in you and who was with you all the way up to this point, and think about what you're doing now and think about how they would think of you now. And I fucking quit the job, right? And I fucking called them and I quit, and I was like, fuck this. And I was like, I left the fucking keys here, I left this here, I'm not doing this anymore, and I'm done. And I was like, I don't care what happens after this, I'm gonna take advantage of myself, and I'm gonna be myself, and I'm gonna live my life again. Because it was like I was falling into such a deep depression with all of that I was like, what am I doing to myself? You know, like, why am I letting like this type of stuff like change who I am and stuff? And man, it was fucking awakening. There was a couple other things and a couple other things that I did that helped me like make this decision. And like when I did, it was just the best thing. And like I feel like I'm on another level of like happiness now. And I feel like there was a stress that existed in my brain, and like I cut it in half and I threw some of it away, and now I'm like myself again, and it feels fucking phenomenal.
That's dope, man. I'm glad to hear it. Well, on that note, he's got to go teach a Muay Thai class. He's jumping into work. That's why, you know, this podcast is a little bit sped up. He's talking a little fast. He's trying to rush and get, you know, and thanks again for meeting me, brother. We're gonna keep meeting up. Fuck, man, dude. You might be a regular on this fucking podcast.
Do another one, man.
Do another one. Shit to say. I know, bro. I love it. I'm all fucking pumped, man. I love your energy.
Yeah,
I'm like, dude, this guy's getting me hyped and shit. Like, I'm gonna go fucking train after this. I might do some yoga because I gotta fucking stretch. You know how it is.
Oh yeah.
And then I might do some jiu-jitsu, some Muay Thai later too. But it was good seeing you again, brother. Good hanging out with you. I know you gotta get back to work and get after it, man. Get after it.
Thanks for having me on, bro.
Ooh.
Hey. Hey, bro.